Every year across most of India, a giant is set on fire. 10 heads, 20 arms, stuffed with fireworks. And when he falls, 100,000 people cheer. This is the night evil loses. That is the Ravana the world knows. The abductor, the villain, the thing you burn. But 40 kilometers from Delhi, in a village called Bisrakh, there is no fire, no cheering. Here, these 9 nights are kept as a time of mourning. Because the people of Bisrakh believe he was born here, they call him their ancestor. So which is it? A monster or a man worth mourning? The honest answer, he was never only one of them. And the half of the story we stop telling is the more interesting half. Start with something the effigies never tell you. Ravana was not born a monster. His father was Vishrava a rishi, a sage of the highest learning. His grandfather was Pulastya, one of the mind-born sons of Brahma himself. His half-brother was Kubera, god of wealth. The two would fall out spectacularly. By birth, he stood inside the most rarefied intellectual lineage the tradition has. Even the name is worth pausing on. Ravana means the one who roars. It is a name he earned. His birth name was Dashanan, the one with 10 faces. And those 10 heads have always carried 2 competing readings. The first reading, 10 disciplines mastered, 4 Vedas, 6 Shastras. A head for every body of knowledge. A walking library rendered in stone. The second reading is the one you hear on the night of the burning. 10 heads, 10 vices, lust, anger, delusion, greed, pride, envy. But look closer at that list. Intellect is on it. Will is on it. Those are not sins. Even the story built to condemn him could not finish the job. He won protection from Brahma himself. Safe from gods. Safe from every celestial being. He never asked for protection from men. Hold on to that. A mind vast enough for 10 disciplines. Too proud to imagine a man could be a threat. In the 8th century, sculptors at Ellora carved a scene into solid basalt. It is Ravana, underneath a mountain, trying to lift it. The story says he tried to carry Mount Kailash Shiva's own abode home to Lanka. Shiva pressed down with a single toe and pinned him there. Crushed under the mountain in real agony, he did the only thing left. He sang. What he composed is still recited today, 1500 years later. The Shiva Tandava Stotram. It is not a gentle prayer, a fast, tumbling meter that mirrors the dance it describes, Shiva, the destroyer. Read it and you find a devotee, a poet, a yogi, not a brute. In its 12th verse, he asks, "When will I ever be worthy to worship you at all?" That is not the question of an arrogant man. Tradition says he accompanied himself on an instrument of his own making. The Ravanahatha. It still carries his name. Folk musicians in Rajasthan and on the island of Lanka still play it today. Some argue it fathered the whole bowed string family, the long road to the violin. By every tradition that discusses him, he was a formidable musician and a patron of the Sama Veda, the Veda that is not spoken but sung. Now the part almost nobody outside Ayurveda has heard. Ravana is credited with a body of medical literature, not one text. Several. Arka Prakasha on herbal distillates and extracts. Marma Vigyana, the vital points of the body. Nadi Pariksha, the examination of the pulse. And Kumara Tantra. "96 verses. Pulse as diagnosis, as prediction, as a map of a person's constitution. Very few ancient texts are devoted entirely to it. This is one of them. And Kumara Tantra may be the most remarkable of all. Tradition says he wrote it for his wife Mandodari while she carried their child. It begins with the mother, pregnancy, then it moves to the child. Hiccups, fevers, mouth ulcers, troubles after teething, over 100 childhood conditions. A reasonable case, this is among the earliest pediatric texts anywhere in the world. And these are not museum pieces. Open an Ayurvedic journal from this decade, you will find his texts under review. Now a caution. A story worth telling is worth telling straight. These texts are attributed to Ravana. That is not the same as proven authorship. Some scholars date Arka Prakasha as late as the 16th century. The name may be a lineage, a mark of authority, not a signature. But ask what a culture believes about a man. Before it places its most precious medical knowledge under his name. He ruled Lanka, a city his own enemies described as golden. That is the telling detail. The praise survives inside the story, written to condemn him. The traditions that revere him agree on why. He was an administrator. Under him, the accounts say, even the poorest of Lanka were never in poverty. The island of Lanka is full of him. A waterfall carries his name. A cave near Ella, 1,300 meters up. Tradition calls it his. Whole communities across Lanka claim descent from him. Is any of it archaeologically established? No. And honest storytelling says so. But a legend this stubborn, this widespread, this specific, is itself a kind of evidence, not of what he did, of what people needed him to be. Which brings us back to the towns that do not burn him. Bisrakh, Uttar Pradesh. The villagers hold him as their forefather. Kanpur. The Dashanan temple founded 1868. It opens one single day each year. On Dussehra, the very day he burns everywhere else here, he is honored. Mandsaur, where Mandodari is said to have been born. 35 feet of him stands there. Jodhpur. He married at Mandor, so the region treats him as family, a son-in-law. And on Dussehra, they mourn him. They do not burn him. In the south, this reading is older and far less controversial. He appears again and again in temple stone strength and devotion in one frame. In the last century, the Dravidian movement reclaimed him deliberately as a cultural hero. That reading is political, contested, and it must be named as political, not smuggled in as fact. On the island of Lanka, the argument runs both directions at once. Tamil Hindus claim him. Sinhala tradition claims him too, a great king before the epics. Two communities in conflict reaching for the same ancestor. And agreeing on one thing, that he was learned, and that his kingdom prospered. Then there is a Ramayana most people have never read. Around the first centuries of our era, a Jain monk named Vimalasuri wrote the Paumakariya, over 8,000 verses, the oldest surviving Jain telling of the story. In it, Ravana is not the villain. He listens to Jain teachers and chooses restraint. Persuaded by Mandodari, he resolves to let Sita return home. And in a future turning of the world, the Jain texts say he will be reborn a Tirthankara, an enlightened teacher, a saint in waiting. An entire religion looked at this man and saw someone on his way to becoming holy, none of which makes him innocent. He took another man's wife by deception and by force. His own brother Vibhishana warned him. He refused to listen and lost his brother to the other side because of it. He was warned by his advisors, warned by his wife, warned repeatedly, and his pride would not permit him to hear any of it. Now, a detail often offered in his defense. Handle it carefully. People say he held Sita for months and never once touched her. True. But the reason in the texts is not his virtue. It is a curse. Years earlier, he had wronged another woman, Rambha, and her husband cursed him. Touch an unwilling woman again and your head would shatter. So what protected Sita was the consequence of his own worst act. That is not restraint. That is a man stopped by a wall he built himself. This is why both readings of the 10 heads are true at once. 4 Vedas and 6 Shastras, and lust, anger, pride, envy. The same head can hold a hymn and a crime. So burn the effigy. There is a reason we do, and the reason is sound. Pride, that large, unchecked, ends the way his did. But understand what is inside it. A physician who wrote for his pregnant wife. A musician whose instrument is still played. A poet who composed one of Shiva's great hymns while crushed under a mountain. A king whose own enemies conceded his city was golden. A civilization that only remembers how far he fell has forgotten how high he stood. And the fall means nothing without the height. Subscribe to the Antique Chronicles, a new ancient story every week.